Chapter 1765. But, can you let go of the things here? She looked at him and asked. No matter how big the empire was, his father would not be able to recover his previous cultivation in a short time. Now, could he really leave? The overall situation has been decided, there is nothing to worry about, and there is nothing I can't let go of. In this big world, the only thing I can't let go of is you. Fengjiu was overjoyed when she heard this, and the smile on her face couldn't be concealed, but she said, what is there to not let go of? Even if I am not by your side, I am very assured of you, I am not afraid of you messing around. Xianyuanmos glanced at her and said, that is because you know that I don't get close to women. Don't get close to women. She playfully took a step back and looked at him from head to toe, her face full of ridicule. You really don't get close to women. Who was it that moved his hands while sleeping at night? Who was it that had to hold her while sleeping at night? Who was it that whispered sweet words in her ear? And who was the one who complained about being neglected in a low voice by her ear? Looking at her playful expression and the mischievous smile on her lips, Xianyuanmos knew what she was thinking. His cold face was a little uncomfortable. He glanced at Ying Yi and Ling Shuang who were a few meters behind him and waved his hand to signal them to leave. Then he gave a light cough, hugged Fengjiu and whispered in her ear. You know, I only want to be close to you. Fengjiu wrapped her arms around his waist and asked with a smile, then, shouldn't we find a time to do something important first? While speaking, a pair of irregular hands wandered around his waist. Feeling the body of the person beside her stiffen, she couldn't help but curl her lips into a smile. Something important. Xianyuanmos' heart skipped a beat, and he grabbed the restless hands on his waist. Something important. She held back her laughter and nodded. For example. He lowered his head slightly and looked at her with a sly smile on her face. For example, the bridal chamber or something. She looked at a certain someone who was obviously suppressing his restlessness. She saw that his body was slightly stiff, his cold face was tense, his sexy thin lips were slightly pursed, and his ears and neck were already flushed red. What do you think of my idea? Doesn't it sound good? She deliberately teased him, wrapping her arms around his neck and whispering into his ear. Don't provoke them. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe. Xianyuanmos fixed his eyes on her. His deep eyes were flickering with sparks, and his voice had become hoarse. All right. I won't tease you anymore. I'm going to have a chat with my brothers. Phone 9 suddenly retreated from his side like a loach. She put her hands behind her back with a smile and stepped back step by step. Like a fairy, she gave him a charming and enchanting smile and said, I'm leaving. Wait for me at night. Seeing her lightly tiptoeing like a fairy and disappearing from his sight in a few seconds, Xianyuanmos' black eyes flashed with a trace of helplessness and pampering. This woman knew that he wouldn't eat her before they got married, so she dared to seduce him again and again. But, wasn't he spoiling her too much by enduring it time and time again? Perhaps, he should find a chance to put her suggestion into practice. Chapter 1766. On the other hand, when Fengjiu found Guan Shilin, he was fighting with Luo Yu and the others in the martial arts field. Surprisingly, the Emperor of Dongyao was also watching from the side. Seeing her, the Emperor of Dongyao was the first to come forward. Master. The Emperor of Dongyao Empire stepped forward and bowed. I was just about to look for you to report this matter to you. Do you have time? Hearing this, she glanced at the people in the martial arts field and said to the Emperor of Dongyao, let's go to the pavilion over there. Then, she turned and walked towards the pavilion. Sitting down in the pavilion, she could see the situation in the martial arts field. After watching for a while, she retracted her gaze and looked at the Emperor of Dongyao. What's the matter? Tell me. It's like this, Master. The other two emperors have already been taken over by us. I want to ask, what's your next plan? do you want to send someone to take over these two empires? No, you can just take over Dongyao Empire. Everything will go according to your original plan. Fengjiu glanced at him. You haven't taken care of Dongyao yet, right? Since things here have been settled, let's go back first. As she spoke, she moved her hand and handed over a bottle. There's an elixir in here that can help you advance. When you go back, find a suitable opportunity to take it. Seeing this, the Emperor of Dongyao could not help but take it excitedly. Thank you, Master, for the elixir. He knew how powerful her elixir was. To think that the Emperor of Xinyuan, who had his inner core destroyed, could help him step onto the path of immortality again. That elixir was already an elixir. Do well for me and I won't treat you badly, Fengjiu said slowly. Yes, Master, don't worry. I'll do my best for you. As long as it's your command, I won't dare to disobey. He hurriedly said, the hand holding the elixir trembling slightly. If he could advance again, his strength and lifespan would increase again. To him, this was something that he did not even dare to think about before. Fengjiu sat in the pavilion and watched after the king of Dongyao retreated. This place was higher than the martial arts field, so it was easier for him to see their moves clearly. Not long after, Guan Shilin retreated and rushed to the pavilion. Xiaozhou, why are you here? I had nothing to do, so I came over to take a look. She rested her chin on one hand as she spoke. She glanced at the Feng Wei in the training field and then looked at Guan Shilin. Brother, do you have any plans next? Hearing that, Guan Shilin sat down and smiled. I thought I'd tell you in a few days. Since you asked, I'll tell you. He paused, looked at her, and said, I think the matters here are more or less settled. In a few days, I want to leave for the upper reaches of the continent. In a few days. She was slightly surprised. So soon? Yes, there's nothing important here, so I want to go to the upper reaches of the continent and join the mercenary group. Then I'll continue my training. He laughed loudly and said, Xiaozhou, you've become stronger, so I have to become stronger too. If you need my help in the future, I'll be able to stand up and help you. There's no better training than joining the mercenary group. Chapter 1767. Since you've already made up your mind, the only thing I can do is to give you some pills for self-defense. She took out 7 or 8 bottles of pills. Some of these pills can be used to save lives, some can be used to treat external and internal injuries, and some can be used to detoxify poisons. Take them. So many. Guan Shilin was stunned, then he smiled and said, Xiaozhou, I know you don't lack pills, but it's not good for you to give me so many pills all at once, is it? Each of these pills is worth thousands of gold, how can you? Brother, you don't have to be so calculative with me. Keep them. Otherwise, I won't be at ease. She stuffed the pills into his hands. Keep them, keep them. Seeing this, Guan Shilin could only keep the pills. After a while, he asked, what about you? When do you plan to go there? Are you going to look for that force? He looked at her with some worry and said, although you've already reached the peak of the Sage Immortal stage, there are still many experts there. Moreover, the force you're going to deal with definitely won't be lacking in Sage Immortals. I hope you can hide there first and don't attract too much attention. Don't worry, I know. She felt warmth in her heart, knowing that he was worried about her. However, Guan Shilin rolled his eyes rudely and said, you know? How would you know? Your appearance is too eye-catching. Even if you go there, there are very few people who can find someone with your appearance. Moreover, you're always dressed in red. As long as someone does a little research, they'll be able to find out where you came from. Maybe you won't even know when you'll be targeted. So, when you get there, even if Mose and the others are accompanying you, I hope that you can do something to your appearance. Also, it's best that you change your clothes. This red color is really eye-catching. He reminded her worriedly, as if he was her mother, and reminded her again and again. Yes, yes, I'll remember. Fengjiu smiled and nodded in response. As if remembering something, Guan Shilin asked, by the way, are Grandpa and the others planning to go back? Yes, I want the Feng Wei and the others to send them back, and Fengjiu, I also plan to leave them behind for grandfather and father to dispatch, so that when they do something, they won't have anyone by their side. However, I plan to bring Luo Yu and the others along, so that when we get there, we can secretly nurture our own forces. As Fengjiu spoke, he looked at the people in the training field. Your arrangement is good. Guan Shilin nodded. He thought of little Feng Yi and hesitated. Grandpa knows about little Feng Yi, right? Yes, I did tell him that we can't hide it from Grandpa. As for grandmother, let's hide it from her for now. Her body can't take such a blow. Speaking of this, she sighed softly. If little Feng Yi and the others were still alive, how great would that be? Seeing the smile on her face fade and the sorrow in her eyes, he sighed and said, actually, we didn't see their bodies. Maybe they're really still alive. We should hold on to hope. Having hope in our hearts is also a good thing, isn't it? Fengjiu smiled bitterly and didn't reply because she knew how slim the hope was. Chapter 1768. Fengjiu smiled. There's no need to rush. She glanced at him and smiled ambiguously. A cultivator's lifespan is so long. It won't be too late to get married in a few decades. Ha 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 ha. Guan Shilin laughed heartily. If he really gets married in a few decades, I think he'll be worried to death. Fengjiu's smile deepened. That's right, if he really gets married in a few decades, wouldn't he be worried to death? But when you get married, you have to let me know. Okay. She smiled and nodded. The two chatted for a while before leaving. Fengjiu got up and went to her grandfather's place. She didn't go to the palace until the sky was getting dark. When Fengjiu walked into the palace, she saw that Xianyuanmo's was already sitting inside with a few dishes on the table. You're back. Just in time, come and eat. As Xianyuanmo spoke, he lifted the jug of wine and poured a cup for her as she sat down beside him. Tonight, you can drink as much as you want. Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and looked at him with a faint smile. You want to get me drunk? Ahem. Xianyuanmo coughed lightly and looked away. Why would I? I just want you to drink to your heart's content. Also, after thinking about it today, I think your suggestion today was pretty good. So? She looked at him from the corner of her eyes and took a sip of the wine in her cup. So, if you get drunk and mess around, I've decided that I won't resist. He said these words with a tense and cold face. He looked expressionless, but if one looked closely, they could see that the corners of his lips were slightly curved, and a trace of a smile and expectation flashed through his black eyes. Then what if I don't get drunk? Fengjiu asked while holding back her laughter. Xianyuanmo picked up the wine cup in front of him and drank it in one gulp. He said in a low and magnetic voice, if you don't get drunk, then it can be me. Pooh! In the end, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. She looked at him with a smile. In Xianyuanmo's eyes, her beautiful face was enchanting and charming. So, in any case, we're going to consummate our marriage tonight. No, no, how could this be considered a bridal chamber? You're clearly trying to force yourself on me. At this point, she covered her mouth and chuckled softly. Her laughter rang out softly. Xianyuanmo gave her another glass of wine and said seriously, I'm actually looking forward to you forcing yourself on me. Don't worry, I won't resist. Good. Then come, drink. She chuckled and looked at him with sparkling eyes. She was a little excited. Was she going to pounce on him tonight? What would happen to him if he refused to acknowledge the debt after eating it from the beginning to the end? Xianyuanmos looked at her deeply. Seeing that she had drunk another glass, he picked up some food for her and said, "Eat some food." Then, he added, "You'll have strength when you're full." Fengjiu was stunned when she heard this. Then, she smiled and nodded in agreement, "That's right. I'm the one doing the work, so I have to eat more." As she spoke, she picked up a drumstick and gnawed on it. Hearing this, Xianyuanmos's eyes gradually darkened, and a trace of expectation flashed across his dark eyes. Yes, he was looking forward to her doing her work, but this was the first time, so he should be the one taking the lead, right? Chapter 1769. Seeing his actions, Fengjiu laughed in his heart. His heart was warm, and there was an indescribable satisfaction and tenderness. A man who could wait for you and not cross the last threshold, even if he had to endure, hold back, and be willing to soak in cold water when he was aroused, what reason did she have to refuse such a person? How could she bear to make him wait? "Here, try this." She narrowed her eyes and gave him a piece of meat with a smile, "Eat more." Seeing this, he glanced at her and responded, then picked up the piece of meat to eat. Fengjiu put down his chopsticks and shouted to the outside, "Ling Shuang." Hearing the voice from inside, Ling Shuang, who was waiting outside, responded and walked in, "Master, what's the matter?" "Ling Shuang, prepare water for me to take a bath. I want to soak in it later." Because of the wine, her face was slightly red, and her beautiful eyes had a trace of blurriness, which was very tempting. "Yes." Ling Shuang respectfully responded and then left. Xianyuanmos didn't say anything, but he was obviously a little absent-minded. Not long after, he put down his chopsticks, "I'm full." As he spoke, he stared at her. "Then how about a few more cups of wine?" Her beautiful face was full of smiles. She poured 2 more cups of wine, handed one to him, and picked up the other. She smiled and narrowed her eyes, "Should we drink a cup of wine?" Hearing this, Xianyuanmos's eyes moved slightly, and his deep eyes stared at her in front of him. The corners of his lips curled up, revealing a smile. "Yes, a cup of wine can't be missed." As he spoke, he took the wine cup she handed over and wrapped his hand around hers. Their hands hooked together, closing the distance between them. Just by smelling, a thick smell of wine spread between their noses. Just as he hooked his hand around Fengjiu's to drink a cup of wine, his hand was stopped by Fengjiu. "Wait a minute." Fengjiu smiled and looked at him, "A cup of wine is not drunk like this." Xianyuanmos was slightly startled, as if he didn't understand. "Not drunk like this? Then how should they drink?" For a moment, his eyes were fixed on her body as he silently asked her. "Like this." She drank the wine in the cup, then leaned forward and kissed those sexy thin lips. The soft touch pressed down, and Xianyuanmos's eyes were dark. He instinctively responded to her kiss, gently sucking her lips, and their tongues played together, tasting the wine together. He couldn't tell whether her lips were exceptionally sweet, or the wine she gave him was intoxicating. He only knew that the beast in his body seemed to have awakened because of her kiss, and it couldn't be stopped. Fengjiu only felt her heart beating fast, and her body seemed to be on fire. The hand tightly around her waist pressed her hard, causing her whole body to be pressed against his chest. The man's unique scent accompanied by the fragrance of wine hit her face, making her unconsciously twist her body, wanting to retreat. However, his deep and passionate kiss did not allow her to retreat. His passionate breath and passionate kiss caused her to be in a daze. She only felt her mind go blank, and her body weakly lay in his embrace, lightly gasping for breath, allowing him to do whatever he wanted to her. Chapter 1770. His gaze moved away from her mesmerized eyes and landed on her slightly opened lips that were slightly panting. Looking at those tender lips that were slightly red and swollen from the passionate kiss, as if inviting him to taste them again, his eyes darkened. He raised his hand that was holding the wine cup and poured the wine into his mouth. Once again, he bent down and sucked on those tender and juicy red lips. A lingering and passionate deep kiss made Fingzhou breathless. She gently pushed him away, her face flushed red, and her beautiful eyes were filled with affection as she angrily looked at him. I can't breathe. Hearing this, Xianyuanmos chuckled. His deep voice was hoarse and magnetic in the night, very charming. Hearing the Leng Shuang outside report that the bath water was ready, he picked her up and walked to the bathroom in the bedroom. In the bathtub, the two figures of a man and a woman were like mandarin ducks, foolishly entangled with each other and playing in the water. In the bathroom, it was a scene of endless spring that made people's hearts beat faster. Yunyang was so embarrassed that she hid in the clouds. After the bath, Xianyuanmos stood up and picked her up. Treating her as a treasure, he carefully wiped off the water on her body and then carried her to the bed in the bedroom. He laid her flat on the bed and looked at the beautiful jade-like person that was naked in front of him. He only felt a surge of evil fire in his body. However, at this moment, the person on the bed suddenly reached out and pulled him down. However, in the next moment, he saw the person that was supposed to be under him flip over and switch positions with him. The quilt that had been left to the side was finally pulled up, covering their naked bodies, only revealing their snow-white beautiful backs and perfectly round snow-white shoulders. Xianyuanmos's eyes were deep, and his eyes were filled with lust. His hoarse voice with magnetism and darkness came out. Do you really want to be the dominant one? Faintly, there was an indescribable meaning in his voice. Fingzhou's charming eyes met his deep gaze with affection. She didn't speak, but used her actions to express her thoughts. She bent down and pressed her lips on his eyes. She brushed past his ears and whispered, "Close your eyes and feel it." Because of her words, Xianyuanmos closed his eyes. But because he closed his eyes, his senses became clearer. He only knew that her lips brushed past his earlobe, then came to his Adam's apple and gently bit it. He only felt his body stiffen, but with a muffled groan, his entire body tensed up. She went all the way down, her fingers brushing past his firm chest, straight to his 8-pack. Her fingers lightly brushed past his gasps and muffled groans. She happily laughed. Little Demonis. He took a deep breath, opened his eyes, and met those beautiful eyes that were full of smiles. You have to hold on, the best part is yet to come. She chuckled. Now that she was in control, she could finally catch her breath. She no longer panted weakly. On the contrary, his body was stretched taut beneath her like a taut string of a zither. With a light pluck, a beautiful melody could be heard. Chapter 1771. Just as the room was filled with passion and the spring scenery was boundless, outside the palace hall, Murong Yixian hurried over with an anxious expression. However, before he could step into the bedroom, he was stopped by Ying Yi, who was guarding outside the bedroom. Young Master Murong, my master and the ghost doctor are already resting. If there's anything, please come back tomorrow. Murong Yixian looked at him and frowned. I have an urgent matter. I must see Fingzhou. Ying Yi's expression didn't change. No matter how urgent it is, you have to wait until tomorrow. They're already resting now. My master told me not to disturb them at all. Hearing this, Murong Yixian's gaze moved slightly as if he thought of something. He looked towards the bedroom and saw that the lights were still on. This matter is extremely urgent. It can't be delayed. If it wasn't really urgent, I wouldn't have come to disturb them. Go in and inform them that I must see Fingzhou. Hearing this, Ying Yi frowned. I'm sorry. This is my master's order. Forgive me for not daring to disobey. What urgent matter could it be? No matter how urgent it was, it couldn't be more urgent. They were in the bridal chamber. His master had waited for this day for a long time. How could he let others ruin it? Seeing him like this, Murong Yixian's face darkened. If you don't help me inform them, then I can only offend them. As soon as he spoke, the guard in black who had been following behind him suddenly attacked Ing Yi in front of him. Ing Yi was slightly angry when he saw this. He stopped him and the two of them fought outside the bedroom. The sound alarmed the Ling Shuang inside. She walked out and saw that it was Murong Yixian. She asked coldly, "What's the matter?" "I have an urgent matter to find your master." As Murong Yixian spoke, his gaze moved away from her. His voice, which contained spiritual power, came out of his mouth and was clearly transmitted into the bedroom. "Fingzhou, I have an urgent matter to ask for your help." Inside the bedroom, the two people on the bed were panting slightly. Xianyuan Mose was about to turn over and start attacking when he heard Murong Yixian's voice from outside. His handsome face immediately darkened. "Ignore him." As he spoke, he bent down and held her soft waist with one hand. When Fengzhou heard Murong Yixian's voice, he was also stunned. Especially when he saw Xianyuan Mose's dark expression, he couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that every time they tried to do something intimate, someone would interrupt them. "Fingzhou, I really have something urgent that I need your help with. This is a matter of life and death. Please come out." Murong Yixian's voice rang out from outside, and from the sound of it, it seemed to be getting closer and closer to the two people in the palace. Hearing that, Fengzhou paused for a moment. He pressed his hands against Xianyuan Mose's chest to stop him from moving. "I think I should go out and take a look. Listen to the sound. If I don't go out, he'll probably force his way in." "How dare he!" Xianyuan Mose gritted his teeth in anger. His face was ashen. Anyone who was interrupted by someone else would feel angry, especially at such a critical juncture. However, the good atmosphere had been ruined by Murong Yixian. He's not someone who doesn't know what's good for him. Maybe there really is something important. She comforted him and patted his back gently. Chapter 1772. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled wickedly, an evil glint flashing through her eyes. She looked at him and suddenly reached out her hand towards his lower body. "Will you still suffocate like this?" Then, her hand moved. Ah! Xianyuan Mose groaned, and his body stiffened. After his body trembled slightly, his entire body lay down. He seemed a little helpless, but also a little doting. "Bad thing." Fengzhou chuckled slyly and wickedly. "It said that women don't love bad men, and men don't love bad women either. He he he." She turned over and got out of bed, wrapped herself in a bath towel and soaked in the bathtub for a while. Only then did she wipe off the water on her body and put on a clean set of clothes. Foamed at when Murong Yixian's voice sounded again, before he could call out her name, he saw Fengzhou in red walking over. When he saw the seductive blush on her face, the charm in her eyes that had yet to dissipate, and her tender and slightly swollen lips, his eyes flashed. There was a faint stab of pain in his heart, a trace of disappointment, and a trace of jealousy. "What's the matter?" she asked, her voice unable to hide her charm. Perhaps because she realized that her voice still carried a seductive charm, she glanced at Murong Yixian and coughed lightly. "Sorry to disturb you." As he spoke, he walked forward and said with a serious expression, "I just received a message from 1,000 miles away. Mei Shizuan has been poisoned and his life is at stake. I want you to come with me and save Mei Shizuan's life." Hearing this, Fengzhou raised an eyebrow. "The upper continent. It'll take at least 10 days to reach the upper continent. If it's really poison, even if we rush over, your Shizuan will already be beyond saving. What's more, there are many strong practitioners in the upper continent. How could there not be a doctor who knows how to cure the poison? If there isn't, I might not be able to help even if I go." Although she wanted to go to the upper continent, it wasn't to her liking to leave in such a hurry without making any preparations. What's more, she wanted to go with Zay. If she went first, how could she let Zay stay? The two of them were separated again. Murong Yixian smiled bitterly. With my master's strength and cultivation, those who can injure him are definitely not ordinary people. Our sect also has extremely outstanding doctors and alchemists. However, they can only suppress the poison in my master's body, but they can't cure the poison. Right now, my master has already fallen into a coma. It's precisely because of the crisis of the situation and the fact that my master only has me as his only disciple that the sect sent me a message from 1,000 miles away to immediately return and see my master for the last time. At this point, he looked deeply into Fengzhou's eyes. Lifting his robes, he knelt down and said, Fengzhou, I know this request is difficult for you, but I owe my master a great debt of gratitude. I can't give up when there's a chance. Please come with me to save him. As long as you are willing to return to the sect with me, I will be grateful to you regardless of the final outcome. He knew that Fengzhou could definitely cure the poison that others couldn't. What was even rarer was that she was here right now. As long as he agreed, his master would definitely be saved. Fengzhou looked at Murong Yixian who was kneeling in front of her and was momentarily stunned. Even when she wanted to kill his father, he didn't beg her like this. It seemed that his Shizun was really important to him, so important that he didn't hesitate to kneel down and beg her. Chapter 1773. Hearing this, Murong Yixian's eyes lit up. She had agreed to it. He immediately said, I have it. My master once gave me a teleportation scroll that can directly transport me back to the sect. If I use the teleportation scroll, I can reach the sect's teleportation array in about 2 hours. Get up. As she spoke, she looked at him and said, You saved my grandfather and grandmother. This time, I'll repay you for saving your master. As she spoke, she looked at the sky and continued, Go to the front and wait for me. I'll go with you after I've arranged things. All right. He replied. He stood up, turned around, and walked out. Ying Yi and the black-clothed guard outside stopped when Fengzhou came out. After Murong Yixian and the others left, Ying Yi hurriedly stepped forward, Ghost Doctor, are you really going with him? Amen, he saved my grandfather and grandmother and asked me for help like this. How can I not go? As she spoke, she looked at Ling Shuang, help me call Luo Yu and Du Fan to the front, as well as my brother, grandfather and grandmother. I have something to say to them. After she instructed, she turned around. As she turned around, she saw that Xianyuan Mose was already dressed and standing by the door. His expression was still not good and his face was tense. He had obviously heard everything just now. She walked forward and held his hand, You heard everything. Amen, he replied, looked at her in front of him and only instructed, Be careful when you get there. Don't be too flamboyant when you do things. Keep a low profile and don't attract attention. He didn't stop her from going. Firstly, she had already made up her mind. Secondly, Murong Yixian had saved her grandfather and grandmother. Now, he was kneeling and begging. Just a few days ago, she said that if he needed help in the future, she would definitely help. If she didn't go, this might become her inner demon in the future. Although they hadn't been together for long and he was reluctant to see her leave again, he already knew that she wasn't an ordinary woman. Naturally, she couldn't be compared to ordinary women. From a long time ago, he knew that if she could do many things, she wouldn't rely on others. Right now, the only thing he was worried about was whether she would be safe over there. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled and reached out to hug his waist. I know. Don't worry, I'll miss you when I get there. When you're done here, come and find me. I'll wait for you over there. He gently caressed her face and planted a kiss on her forehead. Let's go. I'll accompany you to the front. Fengzhou was led by him to the front of the palace. In the palace, Du Fan, Guan Shilin, and the others were already there. Even her grandfather and grandmother were there, so she told them about what had happened. That's right, so I'll go with Murong Yixian first to see if his master's poison can be cured. Feng Sanyuan nodded, don't worry and go. Don't worry about us, we will bring the Phoenix Guards to meet up with your father. As for Du Fan and Luo Yu, they can go with Shilin in a few days. Chapter 1774. All right, thank you, Fengjiu nodded and replied with a smile. Looking at his pale face, she asked with concern, are you really all right? Do you need me to take a look at you? Or perhaps, take some medicine? No need, Mo Chen shook his head. He knew his own body well. He had only suffered internal injuries from the backlash and would be fine after some time. Seeing this, Fengjiu didn't say anything else. After she gave some instructions to the Phoenix Guards, she spoke with her grandfather and grandmother for a while. Finally, she said to Leng Shuang and Leng Hua, you don't have to follow me. When the time comes, come with Du Fan and the others. Hearing this, Feng Sanyuan was a little worried. Don't you plan to bring 1 or 2 people with you? If you go there alone, won't it be? It's fine, grandfather. Fengjiu smiled and said, Murong Yixian's transportation array leads to his sect. It's not convenient for me to bring too many people with me. Moreover, it's more convenient for me to do anything alone. Let Leng Shuang and the others go with Du Fan and the others. That way, we can take care of each other. All right then. However, you must promise grandfather to be careful. You mustn't stand out too much, Feng Sanyuan said worriedly. I know, she replied with a smile. She smiled and responded. Then, she glanced at the crowd and said, his master's situation is urgent. I'll take my leave first. Thus, everyone sent her out. When she arrived outside, Murong Yixian was already waiting there. Zay, I'm leaving. I'll wait for you over there, Fengjiu looked at him and said. Go. Be careful. As Xianyuan Mo spoke, he gently stroked her hair. Fengjiu turned and walked towards Murong Yixian, stopping beside him. As for Murong Yixian, he cupped his hands and bowed to everyone. Then, he took out a teleportation scroll. With a flash of light, a teleportation circle with surging spiritual energy appeared on the ground. In the next moment, the 3 people in the teleportation circle shot out and disappeared with a whoosh. Seeing the worry on his grandfather's face, Guan Shilin said, Grandpa, don't worry. Fire Phoenix and Old White are with Xiaojiu. She'll be fine. She can take care of herself. Feng Sanyuan nodded, then looked at Xianyuan Mo's. I want to leave in 2 days. All right. Xianyuan Mo's nodded. Fengjiu has arranged for people to escort you back. If you need anything, just let me know. As soon as Fengjiu and Murong Yixian left, they began to make arrangements for the following matters. In the 8 Great Empire's black market, the owner of the black market, who had just returned, couldn't help but shake his head and smile after hearing about Fengjiu's recent matters. I really didn't expect so many things to happen in less than a year. She really knows how to cause trouble. An old man smiled at the side, that's right. This ghost doctor's actions are always unexpected. She came to the black market to ask to see Master, but Master hasn't returned yet. There's another matter. Oh. She came. What a coincidence. I also wanted to see her in person. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance. The owner of the black market chuckled and asked, what's the other matter? Chapter 1775. Take away her black token. The owner of the black market sneered. Who has the guts to do that? Chop off his hand. He paused and said with a displeased expression, the branches have to be reorganized. They really don't have any rules. Yes. The old man lowered his eyes and did not dare to speak again. After a while, the owner of the black market asked again, where is this Fengjiu now? She should be in the Xianyuan Palace. The old man said and asked again, Master, should I ask her to come over? Forget it, there will be a chance to meet her in the future. He waved his hand, indicating for the old man to leave. The old man bowed and left. After the old man left, the owner of the black market walked to the window and looked out. The sky was misty, the moon was high up in the sky, and the stars in the night sky were shining brightly. On the other side, in the upper reaches of the Huasyan sect. The Huasyan sect was one of the 4 great sects of the upper reaches of the righteous path. Here, there were disciples from all over the upper reaches of the continent. Talented people could be found everywhere. The disciples of the various clans in the upper reaches of the continent were proud of being able to enter the 4 great immortal sects. One reason was because they were backed by the great sections. Another reason was because they were all outstanding experts. The disciples of the 4 great immortal sects, no matter where they were definitely more outstanding than others. The masters of these people, as well as the peak masters of the various peaks, were even more extraordinary. Now, the Huasyan sect's perfected Lord Yuan Qing was poisoned and his life was hanging by a thread. Even if the Huasyan sect wanted to cover this up, they could not stop the news from spreading. Almost as soon as the news spread, some people felt pity, some sighed, and some secretly rejoiced. Each of those perfected lords was like Mount Tai of the sect. If one of them died, it would be a huge blow to the Huasyan sect. According to what they knew, this perfected Lord Yuan Qing did not have many disciples like the others. He only had one disciple called Murongishwan. That night, on one of the main peaks of the Huasyan sect, the various peak masters and sect masters of the sect were gathered. Their faces were solemn, causing the atmosphere in the immortal cave abode to be oppressive. Did you inform the disciple of perfected Lord Yuan Qing? The sect master looked at everyone and asked. We notified them 4 hours ago, but they haven't returned yet. Someone replied. Why hasn't Murong Yixien returned yet? The sect's teleportation array would take at most an hour to reach there. How ridiculous. A true monarch who was on good terms with true monarch Yuan Qing said with a dark expression. What's funny is that the crazy old man actually said that he won't die. The black-faced true monarch snorted heavily. No one in the entire sect has a solution, and the situation is like this. I want to see if everything will be fine when the time comes. Otherwise, I will definitely smash his reputation. The others did not say anything and sighed internally. This time around, perfected Lord Yuan Qing might not be able to make it through. However, the crazy old man in their sect who had nothing better to do said that perfected Lord Yuan Qing was not fated to die. They hoped that perfected Lord Yuan Qing would be fine as he said. However, the situation was already like this. It was obvious that no one could do anything about it. Who could save him? Chapter 1776. Just as they were thinking, they heard a doctor hurriedly walk out and look at them with a serious expression. Not good, Lord Yuan Qing's situation is getting worse. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on for much longer. Hearing this, all the peak masters couldn't sit still and walked inside. At this place, at the sect's transportation array, a ray of light flashed and Fingzhou, Murong Yixien and the black-clothed guard appeared in the array. Senior brother Murong. You're finally back. Quickly go and see Lord Yuan Qing. He's about to die. The disciple who was ordered to guard the transportation array hurriedly said when he saw him. However, when he saw that he had brought a red-clothed young master with him, he couldn't help but be startled. When Murong Yixuan heard this, he immediately grabbed Feng Zhou's hand, who was looking around, and brought her to the main peak on his sword. When Feng Zhou saw this, she glanced at him and withdrew her hand. Murong Yixien reacted and looked at her apologetically. Sorry, I was just too worried. She responded. Looking at the mountain peak that was covered in clouds and mist, she couldn't help but praise in her heart when she saw the spiritual aura that was denser than that of the 8 great empires. It was indeed a good place. On one of the mountain peaks of Huaxian sect, an old man dressed in gray was drinking wine. When he raised his head, he saw a star in the sky flashing. He chuckled and muttered, "It's here. The phoenix star is here." When they reached the main peak, Murong Yixian went straight to the cave. "Master!" He quickly rushed inside. When everyone heard his voice, they looked back and saw him coming in. They opened up a path for him to reach the bed inside. "Master!" When he saw that his master on the bed was covered in a dark purple color, Murong Yixian's heart trembled and he hurriedly turned around to look for Fingzhou. "No need to look for me. I'm here." Fingzhou, who had appeared at the head of the bed, said without raising her head. She looked at the old man lying on the bed and was a little surprised. However, when everyone looked at the young man who had suddenly appeared and was wearing a red robe, it was obvious that he wasn't a member of their sect. Furthermore, he had somehow squeezed his way to stand in front of them at the head of the bed. The peak masters couldn't help but look at each other. Who was this young man? Why did he suddenly appear? When they saw the red-robed youth standing by the bed and examining perfected Lord Yuanqing, they were just about to ask about it when they heard the youth's unhurried voice. "Take off your Shizhuan's shirt and get someone to bring a basin to let out the blood." Fengzhou took out a silver needle from his space and ordered while disinfecting it with fire. "Black Wind, fetch me a basin of water." Murong Yixian shouted to the outside. Without another word, he untied his master's shirt. When he saw the dark purple handprint on his master's chest, his heart couldn't help but sink. The black-robed guard outside quickly brought the basin of water and placed it to the side. Then, he silently retreated. When the sect master and the peak masters saw that Fengzhou had taken out a silver needle and was about to insert it, one of them immediately shouted, "Wait a moment." But who would have thought that after he shouted, the red-robed youth didn't even pause. He took the silver needle and inserted it into several of the major acupoints on perfected Lord Yuanqing's body. The sect master glared at him and was a little angry. He was about to step forward when he was stopped by Murong Yixian. Chapter 1777. Hearing this, everyone was stunned and looked at each other without saying a word. The faction leader frowned and asked, "He's so young, how would he know how to neutralize this poison? If he were to act recklessly, wouldn't it be?" Faction leader, her name is Fingzhou, also known as the Ghost Doctor. "I believe in her," Murong Yixian said calmly. Seeing that he had said so, the faction leader did not stop him and only nodded, "All right then." The faction's doctors and pill masters had all said that there was no hope for Lord Yuanqing, but he still held on to a glimmer of hope. "This kid looks to be around 20 years old. Does he really have the ability?" The black-faced and short-tempered peak master said. It was not that he did not have hope, but the person Murong Yixian had found did not seem very reliable. At this moment, no one knew Fengzhou's identity, nor had they heard of Fengzhou's name or the Ghost Doctor. After all, the upper and lower continents were separated by a great distance. Furthermore, the people from the upper continents would not pay attention to the people from the lower continents. Naturally, they would not know who Fengzhou was. Hence, they would never have thought that the person in front of them was Feng Xing, whom they had sent out to search for. Hence, when they saw the red-robed man named Fengzhou take out a dagger and slash at Lord Yuanqing's wrist, their eyes widened. What is he doing? Bleeding like this, even a living person would not be able to take it. The black-faced peak master said and glared at Fengzhou with his tiger-like eyes. Fengzhou frowned when he heard the voices and cries of alarm. He turned around and glanced at them, then looked at Murong Yixian. "It's too noisy, go outside." Faction leader, peak masters, please wait outside for a moment. Murong Yixian did as he was told without hesitation. After all, she had said on the way here that she would have the final say in the treatment. This kid is too. The black-faced peak master glared at Fengzhou and was about to teach him a lesson when he was stopped by the faction leader. "All right, let's all go outside." As the sect leader spoke, he instructed the two people beside him, "You two stay and see if you need any help." One of them was a doctor and the other was an alchemist. When they heard the sect master's order, they responded, "Yes." Fengjiu glanced at the two men and said, "Since you want to help, don't just stand there. Untie his other hand," she instructed as she stepped back to wash her hands. Seeing that the basin of clear water had turned into purplish-black blood, he ordered someone to change it. It was only after 3 consecutive basins of water that the color of the blood finally cleared up. However, perfected Lord Yuan Qing's face was as pale as a sheet of paper and his aura was so weak that it seemed like he would die at any moment. When Fengjiu saw this, he immediately took out a medicinal pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Then, he called out to Murong Yixian, "Pour a cup of warm water." Murong Yixian quickly went outside to pour a cup of water and handed it to her. He saw her choking his honored master's mouth and pouring the water into his mouth. His eyelids twitched when he saw that clean action. The two people who were helping at the side were also dumbfounded when they saw this. In their eyes, this action could not be any more crude. However, when they saw that perfected Lord Yuan Qing's disciple did not say anything, they did not say anything either. After all, in their eyes, this red-robed youth still had some skills. Chapter 1778. What kind of elixir was that? How could it be so powerful? Several doctors and alchemists from their sect worked together, but they still couldn't think of a way to detoxify the poison. After all, they didn't dare to use the method of letting out blood to detoxify the poison. In their opinion, perfected Lord Yuan Qing's body couldn't withstand such torment. However, they couldn't help but admire the young man's skill. Because the poison in perfected Lord Yuan Qing's body seemed to be under control and didn't spread to his heart. The purplish-black palm print on his chest seemed to have faded a little and his breathing stabilized. His breathing wasn't as weak as before. When they saw the young man take out a knife and tweezers, and was about to make a move on the wound that they had already bandaged, they couldn't help but remind him, "We have already treated this wound, and the hidden weapon inside has already been removed." Fengjiu didn't pay attention to the two of them. It would be a waste of energy to say anything more. The wound was red, swollen, hot and black. Was it already treated? She didn't seem to think so. Therefore, the two of them watched as the young man in red cut opened the wound and removed the rotten flesh on the outside. He opened the wound wider and deeper until the bone inside was exposed. When they saw the black bone, the two of them were shocked and looked at each other in disbelief. Their lips moved but they couldn't say a word for a long time. They thought that they had already dealt with the hidden weapon after removing it, but they didn't expect that the poison had already seeped into the bone. Just as they were feeling ashamed of their carelessness, they saw the young man holding the bone scraper and scraping the bone, scraping out layers of black powder. The sound of the sharp blade scraping the bone made their hearts tremble. He was really scraping the flesh and bone. Fortunately, perfected Lord Yuan Qing was already unconscious. Otherwise, he would have to bear the excruciating pain of scraping flesh and bone. Murong Yixian watched from the side and was also trembling with fear. He always knew that her medical skills were brilliant, but he didn't expect it to be so brilliant. She could actually diagnose that the poison had not been completely removed from the bone just by looking at the wound and was even scraping the flesh and bone. Even an old doctor who had been practicing medicine for decades would not dare to do such a thing. However, her beautiful and exquisite face only had seriousness and concentration at this moment. This kind of her had once again refreshed his understanding of her. So, she had such a side to her. When the poison on the bone had been scraped clean, the two people on the side secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, their hearts were once again in their throats. This was because after the red-robed young man had sprinkled the medicine on the wound, he had actually taken out a needle that was threaded with thread and stitched up the wound. Seeing the red-clothed youth focus on sewing up the wound, the two of them broke out in cold sweat. Was he treating true monarch Yuan Qing's flesh like a rag? How could this person's flesh be sewn with a needle? This was too inconceivable. Fengzhou, who had finished stitching up his wound, looked up and saw the two of them staring at him in a daze. He said, "What are you waiting for? Aren't you the alchemists of the healers? Go and boil some decoctions to replenish qi, nourish the blood, and expel the poison. The poison in his body has not been completely removed. The wound on his wrist cannot be bandaged. We have to change the water from time to time. At the same time, give him some decoctions to replenish qi, nourish the blood, and expel the poison." Chapter 1779. Fengzhou glanced at the two and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Pour me a cup of tea and I'll tell you." When the two heard this, their faces flushed red. At this moment, they knew that their question was a little out of line. Generally speaking, a doctor wouldn't allow others to help him during treatment. Unless that person was his disciple, only then would they have the chance to see him treat. Even they were the same. When they were treating or refining pills, they wouldn't allow others to watch. However, if this person was their disciple, it would be different. Just now, the two of them had been helping and watching from the side. The red-clothed young man had not said anything to stop them, nor had he avoided them. Now, he had asked them to pour him a cup of tea. In terms of age, they were older than him, but in terms of medical skills, he could be considered as their equal. If they poured him a cup of tea, he would dispel their doubts and it wouldn't be a loss. Thinking of this, the two of them looked at each other with tacit understanding. Then, the two of them turned around and walked outside. One of them held a teacup while the other held a teapot. Under the astonished gazes of all the peak masters and sect masters, they walked in front of Fengzhou and poured him a cup of tea. "Would young Master Feng please dispel our doubts?" Muro Nishuan was slightly surprised when he saw this, but he also felt relieved. Fengzhou's medical skills were superb and he was known as the Ghost Doctor. These two from Huaxian's sect were also straightforward people. If there was something they didn't understand, they would naturally ask. Outside, everyone who heard the commotion inside couldn't hide their curiosity and peeked inside. When they saw the two of them pouring tea for the red-clothed young man, they were even more dumbfounded. Then, the red-clothed young man sat down after washing his hands. His expression was natural and calm as he took a sip of the tea and said, "He lost so much blood that the water in his body would naturally be lost. Although the effects of pills are fast, it's hard to replenish the water lost in his body. Therefore, after stabilizing his aura, the effects of the decoction would naturally be better than the pills." Hearing this, the two of them were enlightened and immediately understood. So that's how it was. One of them was a doctor while the other was an alchemist, yet they didn't think of this point. Then how can the flesh be sewn with needle and thread? Will there be any adverse effects? The doctor asked again. Fengzhou was a little thirsty and finished a cup of tea. She gestured for another cup and then said, "Suturing the wound with needle and thread can make the wound heal as soon as possible. It's faster than letting the wound heal naturally, and you don't have to worry about infection and swelling. As long as the stitches are removed in a few days, there won't be any bad effects. I'll get someone to brew some medicine first." As the doctor spoke, he nodded slightly at Fengzhou before turning to leave. Perhaps it was because they had seen Feng X's treatment skills, but the way they looked at him was a little different. Only then did the people outside walk in. They looked at Fengzhou in a different light. However, they did not say anything. They only glanced at perfected Lord Yuan Qing who was lying on the bed. They were all powerful cultivators. With a glance, they naturally knew that true Lord Yuan Qing's aura was much more stable than before. They all felt that it was inconceivable. The red-clothed young man's medical skills were truly brilliant. He was still able to save him in such a state. Chapter 1780. Only half of it has been cured, not completely. Fengzhou looked at the person on the bed and said, "Not only was he poisoned, he also has internal injuries. If the poison is not cured, the internal injuries cannot be treated. Now, we can only save his life so that he won't die. If he wants to be out of danger, he needs to completely cure the internal injuries and then he will be fine. She paused and looked at the sect leader. Moreover, to cure the poison, I still lack the medicine. The sect master heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. It seemed like perfected Lord Yuan Qing's life was saved. He smiled and said, "You don't have to worry about the spiritual herbs. We have them in the Huaxian sect. If you need anything, I'll get someone to send it to you." Seeing this, Fengjiu looked at Murong Yixian. "Do you have a pen and paper?" "Yes." He took out a set from the space and placed it on the table in front of her. She immediately wrote down 20 to 30 spiritual medicines and handed it to the sect leader. "The spiritual medicines I need are all here. The age is also marked. You must send it over according to the marked age." The sect leader took a look and was stunned. The spiritual medicines on the list were not precious, but they had to be more than 500 years old. There were even a few that were rarer. Hence, he looked at the young man in red and asked, "When do you need these? Do you want them to be boiled into soup? Or refined into pills? Do you need help from my sect? Does your sect have an alchemist who can refine 6th-grade pills into rare-grade pills?" Fengjiu asked calmly. The sect leader was stunned. 6th-grade pills and rare-grade pills? How was this possible? Their sect had alchemists who could refine 6th-grade pills, but there was no guarantee that the finished product would be rare-grade. "Perhaps you have an alchemist who can concoct the best antidote?" she asked again. Hearing this, the sect leader did not speak, but the peak leaders could not help but ask, "Can you? For the same spiritual medicine, can't you just refine the antidote?" Fengjiu smiled and shook his head. "Your Excellency is not an alchemist, nor a doctor, nor a pharmacist, so naturally you don't understand these things." Since he didn't understand, it was pointless for her to tell him. She stood up and said to the sect master, "Prepare the medicine on the list and send it over tomorrow. It's getting late, everyone, let's go back and rest. Sovereign, peak masters, let me send you off." As Murong Yixian spoke, he gestured for everyone to leave. Seeing this, everyone turned around and walked out. When they were outside, the master said to Murong Yixian, "Arrange a place for the ghost doctor to rest. See if he needs anything." "Yes, I will." Murong Yixian nodded in response. After sending everyone off, he returned to the cave and saw Fengjiu walking around inside, pointing at one of the rooms. "I don't think anyone lives here, so I'll stay here tonight. I'll be close to your Shizhuan, and I'll be the first to know if anything happens to him." Hearing this, Murong Yixian glanced at the room and said, "This is the room my Shizhuan usually uses to entertain his friends. Since you want to stay here, I'll get someone to change the bedding and tidy it up. You can sit here first." "Alright, just tidy it up a little will do." As she spoke, she walked to the side and sat down. Chapter 1781. Fengjiu looked at it and said, "Alright, that's it. Keep an eye on your master. If he has a fever and cold sweat in the middle of the night, wake me up." After she instructed, she closed the stone door. She took off her outer clothes and laid on the bed. She exhaled softly and stared blankly at the ceiling. She originally thought that she would consummate her marriage with Mose first, and she had already mentally prepared herself. Who knew that such a good atmosphere would be interrupted by Murong Yixian, and he even ran over here from Xinyuan Empire in the middle of the night. This night was really tiring and her mood was fluctuating. Although she was in an unfamiliar place, she fell into a deep sleep due to her body's exhaustion and the night gradually darkening. Outside, Murong Yixian was guarding his master's bedside. The large stone in his heart was finally half put down. Thinking back to when his master brought him here, it could be said that it changed his life. If he hadn't met his master, perhaps he would still be wandering around somewhere. His master had given him a new lease on life. Although they were master and disciple in name, they were closer than father and son. He guided him in his cultivation. He was strict but also kind. He really didn't dare to imagine what would have happened if Fengjiu wasn't here this time. He sat by the bed in a daze. He didn't go to rest until the doctor who had left earlier came in with a bowl of boiled medicine. Only then did he feed his master the medicine bit by bit. Because his master was unconscious, the entire bowl of medicine was only half a bowl at most. That doctor didn't go to rest because the sect master had instructed him to stay and look after him. Thus, the two of them sat by the bed and watched, paying attention to whether or not the situation Fengjiu mentioned happened. The first half of the night was still normal. However, in the second half of the night, he saw that something wasn't right with his master. Not only was his body hot, he was also sweating. He seemed to have regained some consciousness and his brows were tightly knitted. Thus, in the second half of the night, he knocked on the stone room Fengjiu was resting in. Fengjiu, quickly get up and take a look. My master is hot and sweating. Fengjiu. Hearing the sound, Fengjiu could only get up from the bed, put on his clothes, and walked out of the room to let his master take a look. When dawn came, a ray of light shone through a window of the cave and fell on Fengjiu's bed. She lazily turned over, pulled the blanket over her head, and continued to sleep. She barely slept last night because she was woken up not long after she fell asleep. She only went back to her room to rest when it was almost dawn. At this time, it was quiet outside. She just wanted to take a short nap to recover her energy. However, she was woken up again in the middle of the morning. Fengjiu, I've asked someone to cook some porridge. Get up and eat some. Murong Yixian shouted from outside. He hadn't slept all night and there was a trace of fatigue between his brows. Actually, for an immortal cultivator, a night without rest would not feel anything. However, he was worried, so naturally, his state of mind and emotions were different, and it was easier for him to get tired. Fengjiu sighed softly and got up. After washing up, she opened the stone door and walked out. She came to the stone table in the outer room and sat down. I've asked someone to cook some plain porridge with spirit rice. It tastes pretty good. Try it. Murong Yixian scooped a bowl for her and handed her a pair of chopsticks. There are also a few side dishes. Chapter 1782. Greetings, sect leader and peak masters. Murong Yixian stood up and bowed. The sect leader waved his hand and his gaze fell on Fengjiu who was dressed in red. He then asked Murong Yixian, is your master feeling better? Last night, master felt a little feverish. However, with Fengjiu around, he's fine now. He reported truthfully. The sect leader nodded and gestured behind him. He then said, the spiritual medicine has been prepared. Several disciples behind him carried boxes of spiritual medicine and placed them in the room inside. Fengjiu glanced at them and said, I'll take a look later. Then, he continued to eat his breakfast. Bring us to see your master. The sect leader looked at Murong Yixian and said. Yes, sect leader. Peak masters, please come in. He made an inviting gesture and invited them to enter together. When the sect leader and the others entered to see Lord Yuanqing, Fengjiu entered the room after eating and looked at the spiritual medicine. She picked up and put down the spiritual medicine one by one. She was very satisfied with the spiritual medicine that the sect leader and the others had brought. She put the spiritual medicine into her space and walked out. She called out, Murong Yixian. What's the matter? He walked out and asked. Find me an alchemy room. She said slowly. When the sect leader heard this, he walked out and said, our sect's alchemy peak has the best alchemy room. You can go there to refine pills. Fengjiu shook his head, it's too troublesome. Just find one on this peak. There's no alchemy room on this peak and there's no alchemy furnace. I'm afraid. Before Murong Yixian could finish his sentence, he saw Fingzhou waving his hand and stopped. I don't need those things. I just need an empty place where I won't be disturbed. Hearing that, Murong Yixian thought for a bit, then said, there's another dwelling 100 meters away from here. That place is empty and there are formations protecting it. No one will walk around there. However, other than the dwelling, there's nothing else there. Then that's the place. Just point me to the place, and I'll go there myself. I'll come out when the medicinal pills are done. Before the medicinal pills are done, don't disturb me. As she spoke, she glanced at the sect master and the peak masters. Also, I hope that the Huaxian sect can help me seal off the news about me. Don't let it leak out. Everyone was slightly surprised when they heard this. They looked at each other, but nodded in agreement. Other people wanted nothing more than to be famous, but he didn't like to be famous. His personality was rather strange. That's right, from the moment I saw this young man last night, I felt that his temper was a bit strange, so it wasn't surprising that he would have such a request. I'll take you there. As Murong Yixian spoke, he personally brought her to the Immortal's cave. Because it was only 100 meters away, it wasn't very far. After sending her there, he returned. This young man called Fingzhou, also known as the Ghost Doctor, where did you bring him back from? The peak masters who didn't leave stayed in the Immortal's cave and waited for Murong Yixian to return before asking. They didn't have the chance last night, but they finally had the chance today. They had to ask. Chapter 1783. Everyone nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Only the sect leader pondered for a while and asked, he can refine a 6th grade elixir. It should be possible. Murong Yixian said. It was rumored that he could, but he had never received a 6th grade elixir from her, so he wasn't very sure. However, according to his understanding, if Fingzhou didn't have the ability to refine the elixir, she wouldn't have rejected the sect leader's suggestion. Hearing this, the sect leader didn't say anything. He just looked at the cave where Fingzhou was refining the elixir. He wanted to know if he could really refine such an elixir. That means that old man Yuan Qing won't die. I didn't expect that crazy old man to be right again. One of the peak masters muttered. It was only then that the crowd recalled that when perfected Lord Yuan Qing was in trouble and they were all worried, the crazy old man from their sect seemed to have been saying something about not being able to die. Originally, everyone didn't take his words seriously. After all, 8 out of 10 times, that crazy old man was wrong. They didn't expect him to be right this time. Perfected Lord Yuan Qing's life wasn't meant to end. He was saved by a benefactor. However, they didn't know who this red-robed young man was. Even they couldn't do anything about it, but he didn't need to waste any effort and was confident that he could cure half of the poison easily. They couldn't help but admire him. All right, let's disperse. Seal the news here and don't spread it out. Especially before perfected Lord Yuan Qing is out of danger, everything must be kept a secret. The sect leader instructed before turning to leave. After everyone agreed, they left one after another. On the other side, after Fingzhou entered the cave, she started refining the elixir. Although she entered the cave, she didn't want to cause any commotion. After entering the cave, she activated the formation and went into her space to refine the elixir. While the people of the Huaxian sect thought that it would take at least a few days or even longer for the pills to be refined, the peak leaders of the various peaks and sect leaders were all staring at the sky. They were thinking that if this level 6 pill was refined, the sky would definitely change color, and the clouds would surge, and lightning would flash. Therefore, they didn't need to go to perfected Lord Yuan Qing's cave to know whether the red-robed young man had refined the elixir or not. Unexpectedly, in the evening, just as the peak masters and sect masters were paying attention to the sky from time to time, Fengzhou finished refining the pills in the space. After putting the 3 pills into 3 bottles, Fengzhou flashed out of the space. Sect leader, even if that young man can concoct pills, it's impossible for him to do it in a day. I think he'll need at least 3 days. An old man said with a smile to the sect leader, who was looking at the sky from time to time. The young man's origin is mysterious and his temper is strange. However, his abilities are not ordinary. The way he does things is difficult to understand. As the sect leader spoke, he stopped looking at the sky and turned to look at the old man in front of him. He asked, "A while ago, we sent many disciples to secretly search. Didn't they say that there was news of the Star of the Phoenix? Why haven't we seen her yet?" Sigh. Chapter 1784. What news? The sect leader asked. It's like this. There are several rumors about the Phoenix Star. One of them is from the lower reaches of the continent. The princess of a low-level country is very likely to be the Phoenix Star. However, according to the latest news, this small country seems to have been destroyed half a year ago. There is no other news. The other rumors are from our upper reaches of the continent. Among them, the one who is favored by the various sects is the daughter of an aristocratic family. He paused for a moment before continuing. It said that when this girl was born, an auspicious sign descended from the heavens. Furthermore, this girl is extremely talented and is a disciple of one of the 4 great sects of the Sky Sun sect. She has an extremely good reputation in the Sky Sun sect. When this news spread, the Sky Sun sect even sent someone to visit Elder Tianji to ask if this was the girl. However, Elder Tianji did not say it directly and only gave a few vague words. In the past few months, this girl's treatment in the Sky Sun sect seemed to have improved again. Although the Sky Sun sect did not release the news, some people who received the news guessed that this Feng Xing was very likely this girl. Hearing this, the sect leader thought for a moment and said, "Then send someone to find out." If the situation is true, the Sky Sun sect should not hide it from the other sections. After all, even if we know who Feng Xing is, we will only nurture and protect her and will not do anything to her. Yes, then I will send someone to the Sky Sun sect tomorrow. As the elder spoke, he was about to leave when he heard a voice from the Jade Token. When he heard the words in the Jade Token, the elder looked at the sect leader in astonishment. Sect leader, we just received news that the red-robed youth had successfully refined the pill. Furthermore, perfected Lord Yuan Qing woke up half an hour after consuming the pill. Hearing this, the sect leader was also astonished, so fast. We didn't see any movement from here. Didn't they say that it was a level 6 pill? How could it be? He instinctively looked towards the sky and saw that it was still calm. He could not help but think to himself, could it be that the youth already had the antidote pill? Otherwise, why would there be no movement from the completion of a level 6 pill? The two of them stood up and left together, ready to see what was going on. In the main peak where Supreme Yuan Qing was, Murong Yishuan was introducing Fengzhou to him. Master, she is Fengzhou. It is all thanks to her that you are safe and sound. Perfected Lord Yuan Qing nodded at Fengzhou and said, Thank you. I have heard about you from Yishuan. I did not expect to meet you under such circumstances. True monarch has just woken up and his body is still very weak. Rest well first. After a few days of recuperation, your body will slowly recover, Fengzhou said slowly. All right. Perfected Lord Yuan Qing had just woken up and his body was indeed weak. After a few words, he fell asleep again. Murong Yishuan and Fengzhou walked outside. When they were outside, Fengzhou handed a bottle of medicine to Murong Yishuan and said, Take 1 pill a day in this bottle. After 3 days, take other pills to regulate breathing and you will be fine. The poison has been neutralized and you are fine. I have done what I promised you. Thank you. It is all thanks to you this time. He was sincerely grateful. Chapter 1785. She looked at the sky outside. Although it was getting dark and the night was getting darker, it was just right to leave at this time. So, she turned to Murong Yixian and said, "Your master has woken up. He has taken the elixir and the poison in his body has been cured. I won't stay any longer and will leave now." Hearing that, Murong Yixian was slightly surprised. "You're leaving now?" She nodded, "And I have nothing to do here anyway. But since I'm here, let's look around first." Hearing that, he was a little worried and said, "It's getting late now. Even if you want to leave, you can leave tomorrow. It's dark and difficult to travel at night. You're all alone. How can I let you leave alone?" Fengzhou smiled, "It's not like I haven't walked at night. All right, let's leave it at that. You can send me out of the sect. I can do it myself when I'm outside." Seeing that she had made up her mind, he sighed softly and didn't say anything more. He just told Hei Feng, the guard in black, to stay by his master's side. Then, he personally sent Fengzhou to the sect's gate. They flew on their swords and the sky gradually darkened. They didn't attract the attention of others in the sect. When Murong Yixian sent her out of the sect, he asked, "Where are you going next? Do you have any plans?" Fengzhou chuckled and looked at the road ahead. "Let's look around first. Anyway, this place is so big. It'll be there wherever I go." Then, she turned and said, "Go back. I'm leaving." Then, she waved her hand and walked forward. Murong Yixian took a deep look at the leaving figure. That red robe was extremely dazzling even in the night. Looking at her natural confidence, his eyes flashed and a touch of sadness flashed through his eyes. He only said softly, "Be careful on the way." Sometimes, he couldn't help but think that if he didn't recognize the wrong person and if he didn't break off the engagement with her, would there be a different ending? However, every time he interacted with her, he understood that she was Fengzhou, not Feng Qingran. As a Fengzhou, she was proud, confident, and carefree. Even if they hadn't broken off the engagement, as long as he hadn't entered her heart, they would never be a couple. What was Feng Qingran like? In just a few years, he seemed to have forgotten everything in the past. All he remembered was Feng Qingran, who had become a Fengzhou. Perhaps, as Fengzhou said, he loved Feng Qingran, but his love was not deep enough. Otherwise, how could he not recognize whether the person beside him was the one he loved? In this world, there were some feelings that were missed. Even if he wanted to redeem them, he was powerless to do so. He shook his head and smiled. He thought that he had already let go, but he didn't expect that there were still some thoughts in his heart. Gathering his thoughts, he turned around and walked back. At this time, the sect master, the elder, and the peak masters who heard the news had already arrived at the main peak. They saw Hei Feng guarding the cave, but they didn't see Murong Yixian. They wanted to go in, but they were stopped. "Senior Monarch has already fallen asleep. Ghost Doctor ordered us not to disturb him," Hei Feng said flatly. "Is he really awake? Is the poison cured? Where's your master? And that Fengzhou? Why don't we see him?" a senior monarch asked. He couldn't see the two people anywhere. Chapter 1786. When everyone heard the voice, they turned around and saw him walking over from behind them. They couldn't help but wonder, "Where did you go?" Murong Yixian bowed to everyone and continued, "I sent Fengzhou away. Do you all want to go in and see my master? He woke up earlier but fell asleep again because his body is still very weak. Why don't you all come back tomorrow? He should be more energetic tomorrow." Hearing this, the sect master asked, "Your master really woke up? The poison in his body has been cured. Is he all right?" "He's awake and the poison has been cured. His body is still very weak, he needs to rest for a while to recover." His gaze swept over and saw that the doctor from before wasn't here. He said, "I've also let the sect's doctor examine him. Sect master need not worry." Then why did you let the ghost doctor leave? Since his body hasn't recovered, he should have stayed until he recovers. If he left now and something happened, where would we find him? The sect master frowned slightly and was a little worried that there would be more accidents. Murong Yixian smiled and said, "That won't happen." The doctor also said that the poison has been cured and his internal injuries are also recuperating. What he lacks now is time to recuperate. Besides, Fengjiu wants to leave, so I can't force him to stay. You two come with me to take a look. The rest of you go back first. Don't disturb Lord Yuanqing's rest. As the sect master spoke, he indicated for Murong Yixian and the old man beside him to go in with him. Wait, old man, let's go in and take a look too. Suddenly, a voice was heard. Everyone was stunned and turned to look. They saw a figure walking over unsteadily. There was a hint of drunkenness on his face and his steps were unsteady. Crazy old man. What are you doing here? One of the peak masters asked when he saw him. The old man dressed in gray who was walking unsteadily glanced at him and smiled with his eyes narrowed. Of course I'm here to see the Star of Phoenix. Otherwise, do you think I'm here to see you? Hearing this, the peak master's face darkened. You crazy old man, did you drink a lot of wine again? You can't stop talking nonsense. Sect master, look at him. He doesn't have the majesty of a peak master from head to toe. Ha, don't just talk. Remember to find time to send the 10 jars of spirit wine you lost to me. That old man laughed mischievously and walked over to Murong Yixian's side with swaying steps. What about Star of the Phoenix? Let me see what he looks like. When the sect master heard this, he was slightly startled. When the old man said that he was here to see the Phoenix Star, he was a little startled. Star of the Phoenix. When did their magnificent immortal sect come to the Star of the Phoenix? Wasn't Feng Xing in the Heavenly Sun sect? Just as she was thinking, she heard Murong Yishuan's voice. Fengjiu has already left. I just sent her off. What do you mean? Why don't I understand? The faction leader asked with a frown as his gaze fell on Murong Yixian. Are you stupid? Since she was already here, how could he let her go? From the looks of it, you didn't tell them that the person who saved your master was Feng Xing. Crazy old man glared and burped again. He had originally wanted to see what this Star Phoenix looked like, but who would have thought that she had left? It was rare for him to get a good look at her, but who would have thought that he would miss her without even seeing her? Thinking of this, he shook his head and turned to leave with a lack of interest. Since she's not here, then forget it. I'll go back and continue drinking. Chapter 1787. He had no intention of hiding it from them. Furthermore, now that the people of the evil sect were plotting against Fengjiu, he hoped that the sect could help Fengjiu at the right time. Murong Yishuan paused for a moment then said, Fengjiu is Feng Xing, what proof do you have? The sect leader asked what everyone wanted to know. Murong Yishuan smiled. Elder Tianji's disciple is very familiar with her. Furthermore, I know that it's her. As for proof, I really don't have it. What he knew, he could not tell them, so he was sure that they might not believe him completely, but he was sure that they would investigate after he told them. Since you know that she's Feng Xing, why did you let her go? Don't you know that some of the evil sect's forces have been stirring recently? If you let her go out alone and she falls into their hands, won't she be in danger? The sect leader frowned and said, she shouldn't have gone too far. Bring some people and bring her back immediately. That's right. After we bring her back, we can investigate whether it's her or not. A monarch agreed. Let's go. I'll go with you. Another monarch said to Murong Yishuan. However, Murong Yishuan shook his head. It's no use. You don't understand Fengjiu. She's a very independent person. She'll only do things if she wants to do them. We've never forced her to do anything. If she wants to leave, we can't stop her. We won't harm her if we keep her. Another peak leader said. Murong smiled and said gently, that's why I said it's no use. If she wants to stay, she'll stay. If she doesn't want to stay, even if we have good intentions, she won't stay. Furthermore, even if we chase after her now, we won't be able to find her. They knew too little about Fingzhou's abilities and they didn't understand Fingzhou's character either. That was why they had said such things. If she was the kind of person who was willing to be protected and had no opinions of her own, she wouldn't be Fingzhou. Hearing this, everyone fell silent and didn't know what to say for a moment. In the end, the sect master sighed and said, then let her be. However, we can't spread this news. Ever since the news of the Phoenix Star dominating the world had spread, all the great forces on the mainland have become restless. Some want to kill her while others want to pull her into the evil faction. Even though we've taken precautions, it seems that the situation won't go as we wish. Since that's the case, let her be. Don't worry, sect leader. She's not an ordinary person and won't walk the normal path. You don't have to worry about her. Murong Yixian said warmly. The sect master nodded and gestured for everyone to leave. He and an old man beside him went to visit perfected Lord Yuan Qing before returning to the main peak. As for Fingzhou's side, it was just as Murong Yixian had said. After she had left the Huaxian sect's territory, she took advantage of the darkness of the night to enter the space and changed into a set of green robes. She also changed her appearance slightly. Although she was still dressed as a man, one could no longer tell that she looked the same as before. At this moment, even if Murong Yixian were to stand in front of her, he would not be able to recognize that the person before him was Fingzhou. Chapter 1788. After dressing up, she was very satisfied with her current appearance. She was not in a hurry to go out. Instead, she rested in the space and prepared to go out tomorrow morning. The next morning, the sky was hazy. She came out of the space and walked in the mountain forest. While picking herbs, she followed the mountain path down the mountain to enter the city. In the mountain forest in the early morning, birds chirped and leaves rustled. Fresh air filled the forest. Her steps were light and she hummed a little tune. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of a wild mountain pass through the weeds in the forest. She could not help but pause. This is meat delivered to my door. She softly muttered, her eyes fixed on the two wild chickens that passed by. The two wild chickens did not seem to be aware of the danger. After running for a while, they stopped and looked around. They used their claws to scratch the ground as if looking for food. At this time, Fingzhou saw that there was no one around. She took out a black net from the space and walked forward with light steps. She threw the black net in front of her and covered the two wild chickens. Caught! She happily walked forward and caught one of them. She wrapped the other in the black net and threw it into the medicine basket on her back. She found some dry branches and dried leaves nearby and found an open space to prepare the wild chicken. She planned to eat this roasted wild chicken in the morning and at noon. About an hour later, the aroma of roasted meat spread through the forest. After the roasted chicken was cooked, Fingzhou kicked some soil with her feet to put out the fire. She took the roasted chicken and walked along the mountain path, tearing it apart and eating it. This feeling of eating while walking in the forest was very novel. Moreover, she did not have a destination. Her pace was leisurely and her mood was relaxed. Coupled with the delicious food in hand, her whole mood was different. Walking along the path, her hands were already covered in chicken grease from tearing apart the roasted chicken. It could be said that her image was not very good, but she did not care. Until more than half of the chicken was finished, she burped and wrapped the rest up. She quickened her pace and followed the sound of water, intending to wash the grease off her hands. There were no fish in the clear water. The water in the mountains flowed from top to bottom. It was so clear that you could see the bottom. There were only a few fallen leaves floating on it. The water in the mountains was refreshing and refreshing. After washing her hands, she washed her face. She was not worried that the disguise on her face would fall off. After all, if she wanted to remove the disguise on her face and reveal her original appearance, she would need her potion. Phew! I'm so full. She sat down on a rock and took off her shoes to soak her feet. However, at this time, she narrowed her eyes and listened to the birds chirping on the branches. She felt the breath of a stranger. Young man, how can you stick your feet into the water when you're occupying the upper reaches of the water source? Fortunately, when I filled with water, I saw a layer of oil on the surface. Hearing the angry voice, Fengjiu withdrew her feet. She used a cloth to wipe the water off and put on her boots. She turned around to look at the person who came. She saw that it was a man around 35 years old. He was dressed plainly and had a straight face. However, there was a hint of anger in his eyes. Seeing this, she said apologetically, "I'm sorry. I thought there was no one around here, so I washed my hands after eating." Chapter 1789. When the man saw Fengjiu's apologetic expression, he did not say anything else. His face darkened as he scooped up some clean water before turning around and heading downstream. Seeing this, Fengjiu called out to him, "Big brother, please wait a moment." "What?" The man stopped and turned around to look at Fengjiu with a dark expression. His tone was not very friendly. Fengjiu smiled and said, "I came here to pick herbs and accidentally got lost. I want to ask if there's a faster way out of this mountain forest." The man glanced at Fengjiu and his gaze paused on the medicine basket for a moment before saying, "Follow this water source and get out of the mountain the fastest way." With that, he hurriedly left. "Many thanks." Fengjiu raised her voice and glanced at the water source again. Of course she knew to follow the water source, but how long would it take? Although she was idle now, she didn't want to stay in this mountain forest for too long. She sighed softly and continued to walk down with the medicine basket on her back. She thought that once she left this lush forest, she would be able to fly on her sword. It would save her some time. At the bottom of the water source, the man who had met Fengjiu earlier handed some water to a 50-year-old middle-aged man to drink. He then worriedly asked, "Father, how do you feel? Do you feel better?" "I've rested for a while and I'm already much better." The middle-aged man lightly sighed and leaned against a large tree as he narrowed his eyes. On the side, there were several men with restrained auras. They looked to be in their 30s to 50s. Accompanying them was an old man in gray clothes. He carried an exquisite small medicine box on his waist. He seemed to be a doctor. The group of them surrounded the middle-aged man who was leaning against the tree with unconcealable worry between their brows. "I never thought that the alchemist and doctor of the Huaxian sect would also be unable to do anything. In this case, we can only go to the Sky Sun sect to take a look." The old man in gray sighed. He looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Patriarch, don't worry. There are many people with superb medical skills in this world. As long as we can meet them, Patriarch will definitely be fine." "Forget it, I don't have much hope anymore. Even the medical sage and alchemy saint master of the magnificent immortal sect said that there's no way. What else can I do? Life and death are predestined. So be it. I don't want to suffer anymore. Let's go back." Exhaustion was written all over his face. He had been running around seeking medical help for a few months now. Every time he met someone, they would say that there was no way and that they would seek help from someone else. In the past few months, we've visited 3 of the 4 great sects. Now, only the Sky Sun sect is left. However, if the other 3 didn't have a solution, how could the Sky Sun sect possibly have one? It seemed that this was the will of the heavens, so he didn't want to force it anymore. It was better to take advantage of the fact that his body hadn't reached its final moments to return to the family and make arrangements for the family's affairs. This was to prevent the family from falling into chaos once he passed away. When everyone heard his words, they were momentarily speechless. After searching for so long, asking so many doctors with superb medical skills, as well as some high-grade alchemists, none of them had a suitable treatment method or medicine. Perhaps there really was no way. Just as everyone's mood was gloomy, they suddenly heard a light humming of a song. The tune of the song was somewhat different from what they were used to. Moreover, the sound permeated the mountain forest and reverberated in the air. They couldn't tell where it was coming from. Chapter 1790. Fengjiu hummed a song about orchid flowers as she walked down the stream. The lyrics were not out yet, but the lively melody made her footsteps light and her mood different. She hummed a song as she used a tree branch to hit the weeds on the side of the mountain path. Occasionally, she would push aside some branches and vines that were blocking the way as she walked down. Although she did not see anyone, the divine scent she released had already detected the people below. In this area, she had only met the man who had come up to fill the water. She did not need to think to know that it was them. Sure enough, as she walked down while humming a song, she saw that the group was preparing to leave. "Big brother, we meet again." She grinned and waved at him. Her gaze swept over the other people without leaving a trace. Finally, her gaze paused on the middle-aged man in his 50s and then moved away. "Jimming, do you know him?" The middle-aged man asked his son beside him. The man in his 30s glanced at the youth carrying the basket of herbs and then looked away. He said to his father, "This youth is resting upstream. The oil in the water was caused by him." Hearing this, the middle-aged man nodded. He looked at the simple and honest youth in green and then smiled, saying, "Looks like a youth who picks herbs." Fengjiu revealed a somewhat silly smile and scratched her head in embarrassment. "I pick herbs. Because I was hungry, I caught a pheasant and roasted it. There was oil on my hands so I washed them. I didn't expect to see people downstream, hee hee." "I see." The middle-aged man smiled and nodded his head. He then said, "This forest is rather deep, so the herbs here should be common. Elixirs are extremely rare, but there are many ferocious beasts. You are just a youngster and don't have any companions. If you want to go down the mountain, you can come with us." "Aw." Fengjiu blinked and looked at the middle-aged man with a kind smile and surprise. "Master, how can we do that? We don't know where this youth came from." A man behind said and looked at Fengjiu cautiously. Sigh. The middle-aged man waved his hand and did not mind. "It's just a youth. Don't make such a fuss. Moreover, he looks like a 15 or 16-year-old child. What is there to worry about?" When Fengjiu heard this, her eyes narrowed with a smile. She touched her face with one hand and said cheerfully, "Uncle, I'm almost 20 years old." Did she look so young? 15 or 16 years old. When the middle-aged man heard this, he was also surprised. He then laughed. "I really couldn't tell. After all, your voice hasn't changed. You look like a 15 or 16-year-old youth." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, "It's not good." Then, she asked, "Is it far to go down the mountain? Can we walk before dark?" "There's no way out. This is a mountain forest that borders the magnificent immortal sect. The trees here are lush and the roads are not easy to traverse. If not for the fact that there are too many branches in this forest, I would be able to fly on my sword or ride on a flying magic artifact." As the middle-aged man spoke, he saw the youth in front of him looking up at the sky. He smiled and asked, "How should I address you, little brother?" "Oh, my surname is Feng." She retracted her gaze and looked at the middle-aged man. Chapter 1791. Uncle Liu. Fengjiu glanced at him, his eyes narrowed into slits as he greeted him. There was no awkwardness or discomfort. Lu Jiming, who was standing at the side, saw that his father was chatting so well with a youth and could not help but feel a little puzzled. It was just a youth and he could not see anything outstanding about him. He really did not know how his father got along so well with him. With Fengzhou leading the way, the Lu family's people were led by two burly men and there were a few people behind them. Fengzhou, Old Master Lu and Lu Jiming walked in the middle. Along the way, Lu Jiming could only watch. Because he realized that once this unremarkable youth started chatting, there was nothing he did not know about. No matter what his father talked about, he would be able to respond. However, he did notice something. This youth was knowledgeable, but he did not seem to know much about the layout of the east, west, north and south as well as the situation of the various places. Towards these things, he did not know anything at all. Little brother Feng, you rarely leave the mountain, right? Why did you come to this mountain to gather herbs? Old Master Lu was also curious. This youth was obviously knowledgeable, but he did not know anything about the geography of the various places. It was as if he lived deep in the mountains. Ah! How did you know? Fengzhou widened his eyes, his face full of curiosity. His simple and honest appearance completely deceived people, completely unaware that this was clearly a little fox. Hearing Fengzhou's words, the corners of the others' mouths twitched. The two of them chatted the whole way and they listened the whole way. If they did not know, then wouldn't they have lived in vain? They were already a little dazed when they saw this youth. Now that he asked this question, they were even more dazed. Could it be that he thought that everyone was like him, lost in the deep mountains and old forests? He. Old Master Lu laughed joyfully. Perhaps it was Fengzhou's expression that made him laugh, or perhaps it was that silly words that made him laugh. His deep laughter came from his chest and spread joyfully through the forest. Little brother Feng, it really is a pleasure chatting with you. As Old Master Lu spoke, he felt his body relax. He. Fengzhou smiled and did not reply. What Fengzhou didn't expect was that they didn't tell her how long it would take to get down the mountain. She didn't ask in detail and just kept walking with them. When it was dark in the evening, they lit a fire in the forest to rest. When she asked, they said that they hadn't even walked 1/3 of the way. Little brother Feng, didn't you say there's nothing urgent? Then there's no need to rush. We'll reach the foot of the mountain in a few days. Old Master Lu said with a smile as he sat down by the fire and waved to Fengzhou. Come. Sit over here. It's warmer. All right. She nodded and walked over. The medicine basket on her back made a sound that shocked everyone. Kakik. Everyone was stunned and their gazes fell on her medicine basket. Fengzhou chuckled when she saw the astonished looks on everyone's faces. I've already eaten one of the pheasants that I caught, but there's still one that's still alive. I reckon that I knocked it out earlier, so it didn't make a single sound along the way. As she spoke, she took off the medicine basket on her back and handed the half-wrapped leftover roast chicken to the person beside her. Uncle Lu, please help me hold this. This is the leftover roast chicken I ate this morning. Chapter 1792. He held the roasted chicken in his hand and looked at the youth who was rummaging through the basket of herbs. He vaguely saw that he seemed to have pulled open a net and grabbed a pheasant from within. Here, big brother Lu, I'll have to trouble you to let them handle it. You can roast it for uncle to eat. Fengzhou handed the fluttering pheasant to Lu Jiming. Lu Jiming glanced at Fengzhou, took the pheasant and handed it to the people behind him, instructing them to handle it. A gray-robed elder came forward and looked into the basket before asking, You put the pheasant in there? The herbs inside should have been trampled, right? He could vaguely see some messy herbs and a black net. Because it was dark at night, he couldn't tell what kind of herbs were inside. As for the black net, he treated it as an ordinary net and ignored it. It's all right, it's just some ordinary herbs. They can still be used after washing and drying. Moreover, I plan to sell them in the city. Even if they don't look very good, they'll still be worth some money. She smiled as she spoke, tidying up the things in the basket before placing it behind her. Uncle, just give it to me. I can still eat it after it's heated up. She pointed at the remaining roasted chicken. Here. Old Master Lu handed it to him. Seeing that he opened it and placed it over the fire, he said, "How about we don't need it? Let them roast it hot, it'll taste better." Fengjiu flipped the stick with the roasted chicken in his hand and said, "No need, no need. I'll just eat this." Seeing this, Old Master Lu didn't say anything else. However, when the roasted chicken in Fengjiu's hand was heated up, the aroma wafted out. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva when he smelled it. "Your roasted chicken smells really good. If you live in the mountains, you have to have this skill. Otherwise, you won't be able to eat good food," Fengjiu said with a smile. He looked at Old Master Lu beside him and said, "I've already eaten this, so I won't share it with you. When I'm done eating, I'll help you roast that pheasant." He, all right. Old Master Lu nodded in response. Therefore, after the Fengjiu finished eating, she took the processed pheasant and began to roast it. When she was about to add seasoning to the pheasant, a man shouted, "What are you adding?" Then he vigilantly tried to snatch the seasoning bottle from her hand. Fengjiu narrowed his eyes and swung the branch in his other hand at the man's outstretched hand. A swoosh was heard, followed by the man's gasp. Hiss. The man instinctively withdrew his hand and glared at Fengjiu. When he extended his hand again, he saw a red mark on the back of his hand. He became even angrier. "You brat, you dare to hit me." He balled his hand into a fist and swung it at Fengjiu. "How dare you?" Master Lu, who was at the side, shouted in a deep voice. His voice carried the pressure of a superior, causing the man's heart to tremble and his eardrums to hurt. He involuntarily withdrew his hand, lowered his head, and took a step back. Master Lu's stern gaze swept over and lectured, "You're really getting more and more out of hand. Hurry up and leave." "Yes." The man glared at Fengjiu angrily, then lowered his head and left. "Little brother Feng, don't take offense. They're just worried about my health," he said with a smile as he looked deeply at the young man beside him. He was a little surprised at how the young man had slapped his bodyguard. Chapter 1793. No, why would I be offended? Fengjiu hurriedly waved his hand and said, then smiled embarrassedly, "I just whipped that big guy. Uncle Lu, don't blame me, it's just an instinctive reaction." "Oh. What do you mean?" that old Master Lu asked with interest. "Don't I live in the mountains? Every time I barbecued meat, some small animals would steal things from me when I wasn't paying attention. I would often whip them, and this back and forth became a habit." As he spoke, he sprinkled some seasonings on the roast chicken and said, "Uncle Lu, don't worry, these are all spices, it's not harmful to the body." "Oh, I see." He nodded, not worried that this young man would put poison on the roast meat. After all, it wouldn't do him any good. The two chatted, and not long after, Fengjiu added the last spices, cut off a drumstick from the roast chicken, and handed it to him. "It's done, Uncle Lu, try it." "Okay." He smiled and was about to eat it, but the gray-robed old man beside him took it. He, give this to me first, I smell it, it's delicious, my stomach has been growling for a long time," the gray-robed old man said. As the gray-clothed old man spoke, he took a sniff of the roasted chicken leg and tore off a small piece to eat. Then, he said to Lord Lu, "Lord, this little brother Feng is really good at roasting meat. It's really delicious." Fengjiu smiled and narrowed his eyes, looking simple and honest. She naturally knew that the gray-robed old man wanted to see if the roast meat was poisoned, and he probably didn't trust her. However, this was normal. When one was outside, it was necessary to be vigilant. Moreover, Old Master Lu's identity should not be ordinary. After all, other than his own extraordinary cultivation, the people by his side were also extraordinary. Here, Uncle Lu, there's another drumstick here. Fengjiu handed him another drumstick. Thank you. He took it and thanked him, then tore off a piece and ate it. Roar! Suddenly, the roar of a ferocious beast came from the forest, accompanied by some vibrations. In the air, because of the roar, there was a pressure that could be seen with the naked eye, like ripples in water, spreading out in the night. Alert! Several men instantly surrounded Old Master Lu and Fengjiu, forming a protective circle. Looking at this pressure, it should be a spirit beast of a high rank. As Old Master Lu said, he looked at the night sky thoughtfully, and muttered, "Why would a spirit beast come here? Could it be that it was chased out from the mountains?" Fengjiu, spirit beasts, as they were usually hidden in the mountains. Spirit beasts in this area. Come, there. Be ferocious beasts, but there were no spirit beasts because spirit beasts usually, spirit beasts hidden in the mountains T.B. A. It was also because of this that Uncle Lu guessed that this spirit beast might have been chased out from the depths of the mountains. She also felt that this was the case, because there was a faint smell of blood in the air. Stop! You can't escape. Surround it. Don't let it escape. In front, it's in front, quickly catch up. Chapter 1794. Roar! Another beast's roar was heard. Even though she had not seen it, she could tell that this spiritual beast was injured. Its aura was a little messy. This beast's roar was not as powerful as the previous one. Bang, bang. It sounded like the sound of sword aura slashing the ground, or the sound of a spiritual beast crashing into a tree. She could not see it, but the sound was getting closer and clearer. Retreat! Old Master Lu waved his hand and gestured for everyone to retreat quickly. When the crowd heard his command, they quickly protected them and retreated step by step until they were some distance away. Fengjiu followed them and retreated until she saw the scene in front of her. She stopped in her tracks and stopped retreating. A white tiger with a snow-white body suddenly rushed out of the forest. It was one of the rare white tigers, but the problem was that it was a pregnant tigress with a tiger cub in her belly. Judging from her bulging belly, she should be about to give birth. At this moment, this white tiger's snow-white fur was stained with blood. Its front leg seemed to be injured, and it was limping as it ran. Compared to its injuries, what really made it uncomfortable was the violent running and the vibrations in its belly caused by the battle with humans. It seemed to be unable to run anymore. Its hind legs were trembling, and there was a faint trace of blood flowing from them. However, at this moment, more than 10 rogue cultivators who were chasing after it surrounded the white tiger. They all looked ferocious and their strength was at the nascent soul stage. Among them, there was even a cultivator at the mid-stage of the fairy realm. He was probably their leader. They glanced at Old Master Lu and the rest, as if they did not care about them. Their gazes shifted away from them and landed on the white tiger. They raised their heads and laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha. This white tiger has been chasing it for almost a month. This time, it has finally fallen into our hands. A bald cultivator at the side came forward and asked excitedly, "Big brother, this white tiger looks like it's about to give birth. Should we wait for it to give birth before we capture it? Or should we capture it before it gives birth? Or should we kill this female tiger and take the baby in her belly? Kill the mother tiger and take the little white tiger in her belly?" As the middle-stage fairy realm wandering cultivator spoke, he stared at the white tiger with a sinister look in his eyes. This tigress is at the peak of the holy beast stage. If she accidentally becomes a divine beast, it will be even more troublesome to deal with her. The middle-stage fairy realm cultivator squinted his eyes and said in a sinister voice, "White tigers are rare. Kill this female tiger and skin her for auction. A single piece of white tiger skin is enough for us brothers to eat and drink for several years. As for the little white tiger in her stomach, I'll naturally keep it for myself. I'll make a contract with it and make it my contracted beast." "Good. We'll listen to Big Brother." More than a dozen people instantly attacked, once again forcing the white tiger. Not far away, Old Master Lu saw Fingzhou standing in front and not retreating. He couldn't help but call out, little brother Feng, quickly come over here. These people don't look very pleasing to the eye." Fingzhou muttered softly. With a slight movement of her fingers, she flicked a pill into the bonfire in front of her. Chapter 1795. "I won't do anything rash," she said softly, her gaze fixed in front of her. She was trying to figure out how much longer this white tiger could last. When Old Master Lu saw the expression on Fingzhou's face, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. There was an indescribably strange feeling in his heart. Although it was a little overboard for those itinerant cultivators to surround and attack a pregnant tigress, this was how the world worked. The strong preyed on the weak. What's more, that tigress was a rare white tiger in the tiger clan. It was reasonable for those people to have their eyes on this tigress. Moreover, with these people's strength, it was only a matter of time before this white tiger fell into their hands. In front of them, the white tiger fought with all its might. It bared its teeth and let out a low growl. Its eyes were filled with anger and anxiety, as well as a trace of worry that no one else knew about. Its hind legs were trembling as blood dripped from them. It still had to avoid the attacks of the humans. The pain from its stomach was rapidly draining its strength. Not long after, it saw a long sword piercing towards its neck. It wanted to dodge, but its hind legs were too weak and it fell to the ground. Roar! The white tiger roared in grief and indignation. Its tiger eyes stared fixedly at the long sword that was thrusting towards it. However, at that critical moment, it only saw a tiny ray of light flash past. With a whoosh, it pierced into the wrist of the person holding the sword. The long sword that was thrusting towards it also fell to the ground due to that person's pain. With the danger averted, the white tiger was stunned. It swept its gaze around and it saw a young man in green robes standing not too far away. When it met the young man's gaze, it let out a low growl. When the Lu family members who were standing behind Fingzhou saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel that it was strange. None of them saw how Fingzhou had attacked. They only saw the person who had pierced the white tiger suddenly let out a low cry and the long sword in his hand fell to the ground. "Who is it?" The itinerant cultivator whose long sword had fallen to the ground shouted fiercely. He suddenly turned around and his gaze landed on the Lu family members. "It's me." Fingzhou narrowed his eyes with a smile. However, there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. When his light voice rang out, he strode forward. "Little brother Feng." Old Master Lu had appeared beside Fingzhou and placed his hand on Fingzhou's shoulder in an attempt to stop him. Fingzhou turned around and looked at Old Master Lu with a smile. "It's all right, they can't do anything to me." With that, he walked forward. "Master, don't interfere." A man stepped forward and said in a low voice, "We only met him by chance, there's no need to offend those people for him." "Father, we don't have as many people as they do. It's best if we don't get involved in this," Lu Jiming said in a low voice. It was unwise to make an enemy out of those people for the sake of a stranger. However, just as he finished speaking, he suddenly saw that the dozen or so rogue cultivators in front of him didn't look right. Their footsteps were weak, and they couldn't even stand steadily. He couldn't help but be a little dumbfounded. "Damn it! What's going on?" A rogue cultivator propped himself up on the ground with his saber as cold sweat oozed out of his forehead. "We don't have any strength in our bodies," and we can't even use our spiritual energy. We've been drugged. Another rogue cultivator widened his eyes in shock. He looked at old Master Lu and the rest, thinking that they were the culprits. However, how did they drug them silently? How exactly did they do it? They didn't even notice. Chapter 1796. Since the people on their side did not do anything, it could only mean that little brother Feng was behind this. When did he do it? How could they not notice him when they were all by his side? At this moment, their hearts were filled with shock and astonishment. Fortunately, he did not have any ill intentions towards them. Otherwise, they might not even know when he would lay his hands on them. The grey-robed elder muttered softly, "What kind of medicine can knock out a fairy realm cultivator? And it's colorless and odorless. Unbelievable, this is too unbelievable." He was a medical practitioner and naturally knew that it was easy to use medicine to knock out an ordinary cultivator. However, the more powerful a person was, the more useless medicine would be. Furthermore, if there was any smell, it would be easily detected by a powerful person. However, even he did not smell any medicine in the air. If those itinerant cultivators had not collapsed one by one, he would not have dared to believe that someone could use medicine to knock out these itinerant cultivators whose abilities were not to be underestimated. Still not collapsing. Feng Jiu slowly stepped forward. Seeing that some cultivators were lying on the ground weakly while some were still holding on, she smiled and narrowed her eyes. She reached out and took out a pack of white medicinal foam from her sleeve. "Then I'll add some more for you." As he spoke, he opened the packet of medicinal powder. With a wave of his sleeve, the white powder scattered and sprinkled on the faces of the rogue cultivators. The corners of the mouths of the people from the Lu clan twitched. They were speechless for a long time. So it could be done like this. Cough cough. Even though they wanted to hold their breaths, when the powder landed on their bodies, the pungent smell caused them to cough uncontrollably. Then, one by one, they collapsed. Feng Jiu waved his sleeve and a light breeze blew past, dispersing the smell of the medicine. Then, she looked at the white tiger lying by the tree. She was not in a hurry to walk forward. Instead, she stared into its eyes for a while before asking, "Do you want me to bandage your wounds?" she asked as she walked forward. Old Master Lu, who saw what she was doing, quickly stopped her. "Little brother Feng, you can't." Feng Jiu stopped in his tracks and looked back. He seemed puzzled and asked, "Why not?" Old Master Lu did not walk forward. He only walked out of the protective circle in the middle. He glanced at the vigilant white tiger and said, "The white tiger is ferocious by nature and cannot be compared to ordinary tigers. It is also not close to humans. If you approach it, I'm afraid it will attack you." "Oh, so that's how it is." Feng Jiu suddenly smiled and said, "But it doesn't matter, it has no strength left." As he spoke, he walked up to the white tiger's side. "The holy beast's intelligence has already been awakened. You know that I have no ill intentions, right? Let me take a look at your wound and I'll bandage it for you." The white tiger stared at Feng Jiu and let out a low growl. It turned around and revealed its belly in front of Feng Jiu. It stared at her with pleading eyes. Everyone from the Lu clan was dumbfounded. They saw the white tiger, which had always disliked people getting close to it, turn over and lie flat on its back with its four limbs facing up. The scene was so strange that it was unbelievable. Chapter 1797. She raised her head and looked at the white tiger, finally understanding the meaning of the pleading in its eyes. She touched the tiger's body with one hand, and when her hand touched the fresh blood, her brows furrowed. She didn't expect the injury to be so serious. When her hand touched the tiger's stomach, she could clearly feel the white tiger's life force flowing away. Its injury was more serious than she had imagined. Moreover, its amniotic fluid had broken, and its hind legs were trembling. It didn't have the strength to give birth to a cub, and this tigress was showing its belly to her. It actually wanted her to cut open its belly and take out the cub. Realizing this, her heart suddenly became heavy. Whether it was a human or an animal, the nature of a mother was always so touching. A precious white tiger that was about to step into the realm of a divine beast was willing to sacrifice itself for the sake of its offspring. Woo! The mother tiger let out a low howl, as if urging her to hurry up. That low howl made her come back to her senses. She looked at the mother tiger and revealed a gentle smile. "Don't worry, nothing will happen. Let me take a look at your wound first." The mother tiger raised its belly and didn't move, just looking at her like that. The pleading in its eyes had a trace of moisture, and the tears flowed from its eyes, slipping down its fur and disappearing. "Since you want me to help, then you have to listen to me. Hurry up, don't waste time," she said softly and gently patted the mother tiger's head. The mother tiger had no choice but to turn sideways and show her the wound. Fengjiu quickly cleaned the wound, and after sprinkling some medicinal powder on the wound to stop the bleeding, he said, "Lie back down. Belly up." The people from the Lu family who were standing not far away were dumbfounded. A white tiger was flipping around and raising its belly, and that young man was touching and applying medicine. What was he trying to do? "Feng, little brother Feng, what are you trying to do?" Old Master Lu couldn't help but ask. His voice had a trace of stutter. He had lived for most of his life, but he had never seen such a strange thing. "This white tiger is about to give birth, but it's injured and its life force is draining away. It doesn't have the strength to give birth on its own, so I have to cut open the mother tiger's stomach and take out its tiger cubs," Fengjiu replied without turning his head. "Uncle Lu, please help me light a fire and move it to my side." The members of the Lu family were dumbfounded when they heard that. They stared at the young man with his back facing them. He was going to cut open the tiger's stomach like those people did before. Although that was because the mother tiger's life force was depleted and she could not give birth to tiger cubs, that was too cruel. Could he bear to do it? Feng Jiu didn't hear anything for a while, so she looked back and asked, "Uncle Lu?" Old Master Lu met with a pair of clear and calm eyes and suddenly regained his senses. He hurriedly replied, "Oh, okay." Then he instructed the people beside him. "Quick, light another fire and move it to little brother Feng's side." The others also regained their senses and hurriedly picked up branches to light a fire next to Fengjiu. They looked at the rogue cultivators who were already unconscious on the ground and couldn't help but hesitate. They looked at their family head. "Old Master, how do we deal with these people? If they woke up or the medicine was cured, wouldn't it be troublesome?" Chapter 1798. Fengjiu did not even look at them and said, "These people don't look like good people. Naturally, I'll just kill them and be done with it." Sometimes, one had to leave a good ending when doing things. Some people could be spared, while others could not. When Old Master Lu heard this, a glint flashed across his eyes. He did not expect this young man to say that he would just kill them and be done with it. After all, he looked like he had never come into contact with such matters before. After staying in the deep mountains for so long, he seemed to be honest and pure. When he thought of this honest and pure man, Old Master Lu covered his mouth with one hand and coughed lightly. There were times when he misjudged people. This young man was not honest and pure at all. How could such an honest and pure man silently take down more than 10 powerful wandering cultivators? How could such an honest and pure man say that he would just kill them and be done with it so easily? The more he interacted with this young man, the more he felt that he was a mystery. At first, he thought that he had seen through him and thought that he was just an inexperienced young man. Who would have thought that he would change his understanding of him time and time again, bringing shock to them? After adjusting his emotions, Old Master Lu gestured to the people beside him and said, "Clean them up." Yes. Those men were also used to doing such things, so they responded very straightforwardly. Other than the two men who stayed by Lord Lu's side, the rest of the men all took out their daggers and directly slit the necks of those unconscious people. The feeling of being able to kill a nascent soul realm cultivator and a fairy realm expert with just a light swing of the dagger made the men feel a little strange. They had never tried to kill a rogue cultivator with such strength with just a single swing of the dagger. As the gray-robed old man was a doctor, although he did not step forward to help, he still took a few steps forward to watch. Even at his age, he still could not cut open a tiger's stomach. At this moment, with the help of the firelight, he watched as Fingzhou took out a sharp dagger and shaved off the fur on the tiger's stomach. Then, he rubbed some unknown medicine on it. They could only smell a strange medicinal smell in the air. Seeing the young man's focused expression, they didn't dare to disturb him and just watched quietly. However, when they saw him use the knife to cut the bottom of the tiger's belly, the sharp dagger directly drew out a line of saliva. At the same time, blood gushed out, and the tigress howled in pain. They saw the young man reach into the hole and gently fumble inside. Not long after, a white tiger cub that was drenched in blood was held out by the young man's hand. When they saw the white tiger cub curled up in a ball, they were somewhat stunned. It came out just like that. The tigress no longer had the strength to howl. Her entire body went limp as if her life had come to an end. She tried to open her eyes to look at her child. She wanted to lick it and remember the scent of its body. However, due to the loss of its life force and the gushing of blood when it was cut open, it only felt its vision turn black before it fainted and fell into the endless darkness. Fengzhou placed the white tiger cub on a piece of clothing that had been prepared and quickly sewed up the wound on the mother tiger's abdomen with a needle and thread. This scene made the gray-robed old man at the side unable to take his eyes off it. When he saw that the young man had stitched up the wound and no more blood flowed out, he originally wanted to ask, but he was afraid of disturbing him and forcibly suppressed the urge to ask. Chapter 1799. After Fengzhou wiped the blood off the little white tiger's body, she wrapped it in her clothes and placed it beside the mother tiger. With a flick of her finger, a pill appeared in her palm and she stuffed it into the mother tiger's mouth. Then, she cleaned her hands and said matter-of-factly, "Of course. The wound can only survive if it's sewn up. If it's not sewn up, it will bleed to death. But, how can this skin be sewn up like clothes? This seems..." He was still in disbelief. After all, he had never seen such a method before. Hearing that, Fengzhou couldn't help but smile. No matter who it was, as long as they saw her sewing up the wound, they would find it strange. Of course, they had never seen it before and would naturally find it strange. Isn't Elder Lu a doctor? Then you should know that as long as it's treatable and the method is good, it can be used. She stood up with a smile and rubbed her hands. Looking around, those itinerant cultivators had been cleaned up and even their corpses were nowhere to be seen. But the elderly in gray wanted to ask more but was stopped by old Master Lu. All right, why are you asking so much?" Old Master Lu gestured for him to step aside before looking at Fengzhou with a smile. "We walked all the way here and thought that little brother Feng was just a herb gatherer. We didn't know that little brother Feng had such medical skills. It's really surprising." "Heh, not really. I only know a few moves. Even if my clothes are torn in the deep mountains, I have to mend them myself. I'll get used to it after some practice." She smiled and squinted her eyes. She was a little shy and a little embarrassed. It would have been better if she didn't say that. After hearing that, even old Master Lu's mouth twitched a few times. So this young man sewed up the tiger skin like clothes. But, did he really know how to do that? In his opinion, it was not necessary. But since he didn't say, he didn't ask too much. After all, they had just met by chance and it was normal to have some small talk. "Oh, right, those itinerant cultivators have all been dealt with. The things we got from them are all here." As old Master Lu spoke, he looked at his son beside him. Jimming, give the things to little brother Feng. Yes. Lu Jimming unwrapped the items wrapped in cloth and handed them over. These were obtained from the loose cultivators. There are spatial rings and chinquan bags. There should be quite a lot of things inside, but we didn't check them. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and looked at them. For me. Hee, I'm not giving them to you. They were yours in the first place. Old Master Lu chuckled. But, I didn't kill this person. Fengjiu blinked and said, not reaching out to take it. The burly men at the side couldn't help but roll their eyes when they heard this. They thought to themselves, is this young man stupid? There were so many things in front of him, yet he was still hesitating. Although they didn't take out the items inside, they knew that with the strength and cultivation of those rogue cultivators, there must be a lot of valuable things on them. But you're the one who put him down. Old Master Lu said in amusement. He looked at Fengjiu and said with a smile, little brother Feng, you don't have to feel troubled. Just accept it. With my Lu family's background, these things are just some small trinkets. Chapter 1800. Hearing this, Old Master Lu laughed. The more he looked at this young man, the more he liked him. He was kind-hearted and would save a tigress whose life was hanging by a thread when she was being attacked. However, he was also ruthless when he needed to be and handled things cleanly. He was able to keep a straight face and not show any greed when faced with such a huge amount of wealth. After declining, he was able to accept those things without any hesitation. In his eyes, this behavior was straightforward. It was obvious that he had a good temperament. Little brother Feng, I wonder if your master. The dazed old man in gray asked. However, before he could finish, he was interrupted by Fengjiu. Old Master Lu, don't ask my master. My master is a strange person. When I left the mountain, I told you not to mention his name in front of others. Fengjiu said with a smile. I see. The old man in gray felt that it was a pity. He originally thought that if he could find little brother Feng's master, perhaps the family head's illness could be cured. Who knew that the other party was a recluse? Even so, he couldn't help but look at Fengjiu. He carefully looked at her and asked, I see that little brother Feng's medical skills are also very good, right? Also, those medicines are extraordinary. Hee. Fengjiu smiled embarrassedly and looked at them with some embarrassment. Didn't I say earlier? I only know a little, and I only know how to sew clothes. I do know some herbs, but my medical skills. I can treat animals and ferocious beasts, but I don't dare to say that I can treat people. Hearing this, everyone in the Lu family twitched their mouths. All right. So he was a veterinarian. No matter how good his medical skills were, they would not dare to ask him to treat their family head. As for those medicines. She grinned. My master gave them to me for self-defense. He said that there are many bad people at the foot of the mountain, so I won't be at a disadvantage if I have some for self-defense. Understood. The old man in gray sighed and nodded, indicating that he did not need to say any more. All right, let's all take a break. Old Master Lu instructed, then looked at Fengjiu. Little brother Feng, you should rest too. Okay. Fengjiu smiled and nodded, then sat down beside the white tiger. Seeing this, the Lu family members lit another bonfire. Old Master Lu leaned against the tree and closed his eyes to rest. As the night deepened, the faint sounds of ferocious beasts could be heard from the forest. The sounds of insects could be heard in the night, accompanied by the crackling sounds of burning branches. Even though they were still on guard against their surroundings, they couldn't help but feel exhausted. Apart from the 4 people who took turns to keep watch, the others gradually fell asleep. Everyone's breathing calmed down. Half of the night passed, and just as dawn was about to arrive, the sky gradually brightened. The tigress moved a little and suddenly opened her eyes. When the tigress woke up, Fingzhou, who was sleeping next to the tigress, opened his eyes and met the tigress's shocked eyes. Looking at his expression, she couldn't help but smile. "You're not dead, no need to be so shocked."